Hi, kitty cats. Gender-affirming voice advice is all over video streaming platforms, but many in the gender-diverse community struggle to apply those lessons consistently. So what holds some of us back, while others appear to learn effortlessly? Well, in this stream here, I'll explain the unique challenges the transgender community faces in learning gender-affirming voice. This is going to be based on my own experience, as well as stories I've heard directly from my clients and my friends. Each of us can learn gender-affirming voice, but we need to recognize how gender diversity differs from other speech-language pathology efforts. All right, let me do some quick plugs here. I already see Thistle. Hello, good to see you. I also see Margie. Good to see you. Oh, and look at this. We even have Anita Lichtenberg as well, and a wet and windy Wellington, which is www. All right, opening plugs. I'm Dr. Amethysta Herrick. I am both an author and a podcaster. My work discusses identity and gender from a scientific standpoint. My scientific background is molecular biology, specifically genetics, and then I added analytical chemistry into that as well. So you can check the link down below for more information about me and the work that I do. That link, as you can see, that way, is purplepawclan.com. You can go there and you'll find a page all about me. You can follow me on all the social media networks that I'm on, and you can read the articles that I've written and the podcasts that I have published. So if you like this content, and boy, I hope you do, please consider subscribing at purplepawclan.com. You can get a subscription for as low as $5 a month, but even if you don't want to do that, you can sign up for the free newsletter. And actually, it's the Dark Moon, so blessings of the Dark Moon. But it's a dark moon today, so that means I'm going to be putting out a newsletter, hopefully tonight. Anyway, I also publish articles and podcasts by other contributors, and if you're interested in contributing your original work about identity and gender, then I encourage you to email me. Once again, there's a contact page over here on the website, purplepawclan.com. All right. So I'm not going to kid you, this might be somewhat of a dense live stream today. I want to give some background on this material. I am currently in the process of writing an academic journal article that's going to be submitted to the American Journal of Speech-Language Pathology. They're going to have a special issue for client feedback of sorts that was going to be published in 2026. Now maybe you're saying to yourself, Amy, or saying to me, Amy, you're not a speech-language pathologist. No, I am not. My friend Kevin Dorman approached me about collaborating on this. So they were invited by the journal to submit an article, and they approached me about collaborating on it. Now, Kevin, if you don't know Kevin, Kevin owns Prismatic Speech Services and is also gender diverse. I've interviewed him on my own podcast, and, they're great people. So, maybe even go and watch that. So this topic is very important to both of us. So today on this here live stream, I want to present the material I gathered for this article. Just as a quick aside, the article is going to be shorter than the material here because that's based on a different audience, right? This is a comprehensive look at speech-language pathology as it applies to gender-affirming voice. Another aside, I'm not going to be able to teach any techniques. As I said, not a speech-language pathologist. I am not qualified to do that. I am qualified to discuss my own experience receiving gender-affirming voice lessons and the experiences of people that I spoke to directly. To remind you, my work focuses on identity and gender from a scientific viewpoint, which means I look at gender-affirming voice with this same viewpoint. And I want to answer the question, what struggles do we in the transgender community particularly face and why? Now, I hope to be able to play some more Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood. Let's do this presentation and see where we land. All right, so here is where I'm going to get into, the article that we're writing, the actual article that we're writing. I'm going to throw out a few statistics as introductory material here. Obviously, there are estimates on the transgender community, like the number of transgender... Hey, Angel, by the way, Angel7 just joined. Estimates on the transgender community range anywhere from about 0.8% to about 3% of global population. But in the US alone, the US alone, more than 1,000 anti-transgender bills were introduced in federal and state legislatures as of today. Ponder that. More than 1,000. This is actually a 40% increase over 2024, and we're only 3/4 through the year. We have obviously seen repeated attacks on the transgender and gender diverse community, including limiting constitutional rights. We've also seen from pundits and Congress people to round up gender diverse people and put us into psychiatric hospitals. Many transgender people, no cap, I'm so Gen Z, no cap, live in fear. The ability to blend into society has become more critical now than ever, even as we watch our access to gender-affirming care being threatened. So, one important type of gender-affirming care is gender-affirming voice. And many in the transgender community consider that vital. In my own experience and in my work with the transgender community, frankly, I've found success in gender-affirming voice appears inconsistent. I even see Ella here. So first of all, hi, Ella. Ella says voice training is hard to do consistently. Yes, absolutely. I think there are reasons for that. The biggest reason is that gender-affirming voice is different from other forms of work that a speech-language pathologist would do. We face different challenges than other clients that they have. And so here, I'm going to present my own firsthand analysis and criticism of some current methods, and when appropriate, I'm going to provide recommendations to improve them. Summary, the transgender community is not going away. The SLP community needs to understand the unique opportunities and challenges we in particular face, because doing so is key to improving success in gender-affirming voice. All right, let me check comments again really fast. Did I miss anybody? Oh, hey, Shakespeare is here. Meow. What do we have? So Margie says she finds her femme voice comes and goes, but the more she uses it, the more natural it gets. I'm going to get to that. Actually, you are talking about something that's part of what I have to present, and so I'm glad you made that comment. So, an appropriate place to start. I feel like I've suddenly turned into Maria von Trapp. Understanding how the transgender community engages with gender-affirming voice really requires understanding gender. Gender impacts much of the human experience. And we must understand gender to understand how voice impacts the gender diverse community. So here we go. Angel's got a good question here. Angel asks, can hormones help voice alone, help voice also? Can't they help tighten or loosen vocal cords? And so she also throws in a bit of a disclaimer. She's a cishet lady, and any of her trans sisters can practice their femme voice with her. Thank you, Angel. It's so awesome. Hormones, so it depends on what you're talking about. Testosterone, and I'll do this really quickly, but testosterone will loosen the ligaments and muscles around the larynx. So the web of muscle and ligaments around the larynx. Stopping taking testosterone doesn't take it back. So you really have to, a masculine to feminine transition does require practice. But on that note, there are other aspects of voice that, again, I'll get to, that still apply, even when you're doing feminine to masculine. Oh, dang, yeah, you're right. Thanks, Thistle. I didn't put up the chat thing. That's me. That's on me. All right, so gender. What's gender? So I'm going to present here my original theory of identity and gender. Now, I know I've done this before. It's going to be in this article, so here we go. For the record, I reject the two major prevailing theories of gender. Gender is not solely defined by biology. We know this. We've known it for a long, long time. Gender is not solely defined by biology. Gender is also not solely defined by society. It's not solely a social construct. So in my theory, gender is a complex. A complex is a set of interrelated factors that affect each other. And in my theory, there are 4 factors: physical, cognitive, behavioral, and social. You don't have to remember this. I'm just about to talk about it. Physical aspects of gender, this is just how we look. This is our clothes, our hair, our makeup. This is what we often associate with gender, but it's only an aspect of gender, because some of how we look is voluntary and some of it is not. The next aspect, cognitive, this is how we think, how we feel. These are our beliefs about ourselves, but also about others. And again, some of this is voluntary, but some of it is not. And there's a lot that I talk about in terms of what is involuntary in my own theory of identity. The behavioral aspect of gender. This is how we act. Now, this is driven, first of all, by how we think and feel, our beliefs. It isn't in part impacted by how we look. Now, this is voluntary. Behavior is voluntary. Behavior is our attempt, as we behave within a social environment, to remain safe. Now, I mentioned social environment. That's because the last aspect of gender is social. We all grow up in a social environment. There are expectations on how every member looks, thinks, feels, believes, and acts. And yeah, we go, oh, we all have individual rights. There are expectations from a social environment. These are what we call social norms. Now, an interesting tidbit, ain't nobody conforms with every social norm, but everybody is expected to conform with enough social norms to be accepted. So to sum up, gender is a complex of how we look, what we believe, and how we feel about that, how we act to express as much of who we are while remaining safe within our social environment. So what would gender affirming mean? That's we feel affirmed when we look the way we choose, when we look the way we want to look, when we believe that we are who we are, when we can behave in the way that we choose, and the social environment would expect nothing less. That's what gender affirming would be. Now, I'm not going to say, oops, did I miss that? Oh, here we go. Now, I'm not going to say that there aren't limits to affirming our gender. There are limits. Each of us has limits. Interestingly, none of us has the same limits, right? And sometimes these limits can change. Like maybe, you just need training for something. Maybe you need practice. And maybe there's a hard stop on how far we can go in pushing our limits. But we know this going into any mode of expression. Any mode of expression, we have to recognize our own limits. And that might be time, that might be talent, it might be a lot of things. But ultimately, our level of comfort with ourselves has to begin with understanding our limits. And I got this actually from a guy named David Allen Brown. There we go, David Allen Brown. Comfort with ourselves is more than understanding our limits. It's embracing our limits. It's being grateful for them because they make us who we are. Our limits are found in every aspect of our existence. Speaking specifically, that's fun, speaking specifically about gender, if you look at the physical aspect, surgery can work wonders, truly wonders, and surgery cannot affect some physical characteristics. Our belief in who we are is important, and our beliefs must be in context of those limits. Our behavior is our choice, and our behavior often affects other people. And our social environment is frequently a limit we're not even going to be able to change. Sometimes that's a hard stop. All right, now I've gone through that much. I do want to talk about why would you even look at gender-affirming voice? Before I get there, I'm going to look at comments. Here we go. Got the chat thingy up. That's good. I did see something good. Oh, here we go, from Angela. So Thistle says she grew up locked in her bedroom most days. I laughed, and that's awful. And because you're actually true, or you're actually not lying. That is a social environment of sorts. It was certainly not an affirming one. I mean, I feel for you with that, Thistle. Here we go. So Angel also brings up she's one type of woman, but there is many types as there are women. I love that. Every sister is valid, says Angel. Thank you, Angel. Let me see. So Angela says, as masculine to feminine transgender, she acts feminine, but not totally. as we are all a bit of both feminine and masculine. I think entirely true. I think entirely true. And this is why I mentioned that behavior ends up being voluntary. We choose the aspects of what we find important to express. And I'm actually just about to get into that. So perfect lead in. Thank you. Now, the purpose. So here we go. The purpose of gender-affirming voice. The typical work done by a speech-language pathologist, if you don't know what these people are, the typical work done by a speech-language pathologist is to address a pathology in communication. Now, pathology, in some way, pathology, the definition of pathology implies a dysfunction of some sort. In this context, dysfunction in communication, this is a dysfunction in communication through speech and language. So speech-language pathologist. What would they typically do? Sometimes they'll work with dysfunction in articulation. So, a lisp, maybe a lisp, something like that. They will work with people who struggle with comprehension in speech and language. So aphasia, maybe, so somebody who struggles to create thoughts or bring them in. And then they'll also work with people who struggle with fluency, so like stutters. My big point here is that gender-affirming voice isn't necessarily addressing a pathology. Maybe there are other pathologies in there. Maybe there would be things that an SLP would consider dysfunctional. But from here out, I intend to speak about gender-affirming voice as if there is no dysfunction. No dysfunction in communication, but rather it's a new effort. Because really what we're talking about is gender-affirming voice is an SLP teaching a client to modify their default voice. I love this particular phrase. I don't know if anybody remembers. Jasmine Vine was on a live stream I did. It was some weeks ago, and you can go back and find it in the history here. But Jasmine brought up this distinction between default voice and the voice that we would choose. A default voice comes from physical configuration. Obviously, it's how your body grew. Ends up being the size of your vocal tract, your sinuses, everything that goes into a vocal tract, size of your tongue, whatever. So physical configuration, but also some cognition. Many of us don't express ourselves as assertively as we could because what we think about ourselves and what we feel about ourselves affects our communication. And this comes largely as a result of the social environment. So what I'm saying here is that the default voice is behavior. These are voluntary actions using the physical components of voice, superimposed with the values and beliefs that come from inside and impacted by the values and beliefs that we end up taking from our social environment. This is good and bad. It's good because default voice is behavior. Behavior is voluntary. We can change behavior. Gender-affirming voice involves teaching methods to behave differently, ultimately. And that's the distinction that Jasmine makes now and that I make between a default voice and a chosen voice. Are we just going to use everything that we inherited or accepted before today, or do we choose to use our gifts differently? Well, why would we want to behave any differently? This is the heart, ultimately, of gender and gender transition. If you are gender diverse, we choose to reject certain expectations we received from our social environment. And in doing so, we express ourselves according to our own expectations. That was kind of academic. In normal words, what I'm saying is we come together, we're born and we see how one gender is expected to look, to think, to feel, to act, but those expectations don't suit us. And so we choose to look and think and feel and act in ways that do suit us. And maybe these correspond to social norms, but maybe they don't. So the purpose, ultimately, of pursuing Gender-affirming voice is simply to modify our default voice. It's to overcome behavior we initially chose to fulfill expectations around us. And we choose to pursue gender-affirming voice because of social expectations, in that we choose to reject some expectations and embrace others. There we go. There's our purpose. Here's a lovely point here, by the way. Angel says, ladies, just practice with safe people. It's really true. Yeah. Learning another accent, it's like learning another accent or any other way of speaking. Yeah. I agree with you. I'm gonna, let me go for these others. What do we have here? We have, oh my gosh, there were quite a few. I'm sorry. I let a bunch of these go by. So here we go. Anita says they resent that so many aspects of looks, behavior, etc. are tied in with gender by our society. So those are identity. I mean, gender I see only as an extension of our identity. I know we want to. It's tied into society because I think that there are people who want to regulate it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be. I mean, otherwise it's just the human experience. It's just identity. Ella says we are all on the gender spectrum, and wherever you are on the scale, you are valid. Ooh, just wait until I get to this point. Because I agree. Gender is a human experience. Gender is not something that only I've struggled with. Angel has, I know, as we've spoken together. All of us do. All of us do. Because it's a human experience. All right, what do we got? Ella also says, luckily she's not super dysphoric about her voice, but I do still want to be better at voice training. All right, I have points that maybe you could bring up with somebody, if you're training with somebody. But, oh, here's something interesting too. Thank you, Margie. So Margie said, I got to tell you, I never noticed this, even when we spoke. But Margie says she stutters due to functional neurologic disorder, so it's a symptom of extreme stress in her case. Oh. So when you were talking to me, of course, it was a completely safe place, and no wonder you didn't. So I bring this up. I wonder what an SLP could do that, if it's a neurologic disorder. It's an interesting question. So My Thorns Has Roses. I'm going to pop this up, and then I want to answer this or go on to this next section. But My Thorns Have Roses say, if it were not for her voice, she would be able to live a more affirming experience in society. It bothers them so much that they make every effort to avoid conversation in person and society in general. Yes, so here we go. The next topic I want to cover is, do we really need gender-affirming voice? I mentioned at the outset, it's critical that we learn to blend in, because not blending in could be dangerous these days, depending on where you are. And because behavior is voluntary, and the stakes of this behavior are to fulfill social expectations, we may or may not really care about pursuing gender-affirming voice. Everybody's gender journey is different, and each of us emphasizes different aspects of gender. Some of us focus on physical, some of us focus on behavioral, some of us focus on how society perceives us. What's important to me is likely not what's important to you. I can almost guarantee. But this is no different from any other expression of the human experience. How you look, how you think, how you feel, how you act are different from every other person. Ever. I don't think there's any right or wrong way to do gender. I don't know. Is that can gender be a verb now? There's no right or wrong way to gender. I know people, in fact, I admire these people. I know people who put on a little bit of lipstick, put on a skirt, do nothing else and call it done. They're like, I am feminine enough. I admire those people. Because I also know people, I'm one of them, how does that work? Who feel that we must pass in any situation ever in society. And honestly, this is the unfair influence of social expectations on self-expression. It's unfair. How far you go ultimately is up to you. Nobody else can define what is important to you, and nobody else can decide what's going to be gender affirming. Now, many transgender people, transgender women specifically, believe the gender-affirming voice is the primary component of passing. I don't agree. I don't agree. Ultimately, passing, I mean, it depends on how much, interaction you have with somebody, but ultimately passing is about not getting that second look when somebody sees you for the first time. There are many boxes to check in gender. Don't forget, there are masculine women, there are feminine men. Gender-affirming voice might help you, but gender-affirming voice might also only be polish on top of everything else. And who knows, is that necessary within your social environment? If not, it may or may not help you. So I wanted that little disclaimer, I suppose, at the outset. Let me look at comments. So hopefully, Thorns, hopefully that said something to you. I hear you. I hear you. There's something I'm going to mention toward the end that also plays into what you've said. So I guess I'm saying stick around. I don't know. I also want to do station identification, I suppose. I'm Dr. Amethysta Herrick. Today I am talking about the limits, pushing the limits that to learning gender-affirming voice. This is part of an article that I'm working on with a speech-language pathologist, Kevin Dorman. So, all right, let me see. What do we got? Oh yeah, Margie brings up Jasmine's Mickey Mouse and Goofy impressions. Oh boy. I happen to like the one at the end. The good Lord yeeteth and the good Lord yoinketh away. That's one of my bit there. I also want to bring this up too. So the idea of a one-dimensional spectrum feels far too limiting to Anita. Most of what they are is neither masculine nor feminine nor in the middle. So I think spectrum is a horrible word to use here. And this really comes because I am a scientist, right? When you do spectrometry, and of course I had whole class, whole instruction about spectrometry as part of graduate school. Spectrometry, you limit something to a one-dimensional, two-dimensional actually. Usually intensity versus some other type of metric. I don't think that's the way things work. And another thing that I learned was surface minimization. Sounds super fancy, but really all it meant is when you're trying to optimize an experiment, you don't want to go more than one axis, but you might have many axes. And so when you're looking at surface minimization, when you're trying to optimize a process, it could be really difficult because you have multiple axes. And this is why I like to think of gender as multi-axial, I suppose, coming across much of the human experience. Because I don't think we can just say spectrum from masculine to feminine. Because masculine to feminine what? Masculine to feminine behavior? Masculine to feminine, chest size? It's not enough. Holy cats, Estrojennifer just joined. Wow. Hey, Estrogen, good to see you. All right, so thank you for that comment, Anita. What do we got here? So Ella brings up non-binary and gender fluid people are valid too. I like using the words here, gender diverse. I don't like using the word trans as an umbrella term. I really prefer gender diverse because I think most of us are. Like I said, no one of us fulfills every gender norm. And if not, then we must be gender diverse, right? I like this. When Angela was young, she had elocution lessons, which gave her a posh voice. I wish I had the same. Instead, when I was young, I hung out in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles and ended up saying things like, totally rad. Ah, well, maybe things will get better. All right, what else do we have here? So Margie says she refers to gender as a superdimensional hyperspace. There are many variables that contribute to gender. Agreed. Ella, you make an excellent point. Ella makes, I'm gonna put a pin in this. Okay, I'm actually gonna start. So Ella says right off the bat, she notices it's harder for her to use girl voice around people she knew before transitioning. Yeah, I'm gonna get to that. So let me do this really fast. Miss Chief absolutely talks posh. I've heard Miss Chief's voice and I think it's very posh. All right, I am, let me see. To gender is totally a verb. There we go. Genevieve is here. Good to see you. Just if you know, if I don't read your comment, it's just out because it's expedience, nothing else, okay? Let me see. Where I'd like to go at this point, I want to talk about the limits, because I said this is going into a journal about speech-language pathology, right? So really what I care about here is presenting the limits that I perceive on learning gender-affirming voice. So I mentioned before, the way we speak is a behavior. While behavior is voluntary, there are limits in our behavior. And those limits, particularly when it comes to voice, are inherent in physical characteristics, cognitive function, and the flexibility of our social environment as it defines behavior, defines the behavior. So each of us, if we choose to engage with gender-affirming voice, is going to do this differently. Now, I want to say, at the outset, different doesn't mean bad. It's not bad. Different means that we each focus on different parts of the process. Different just means that we each learn in a particular fashion. And we all know that, right? Some people can learn by reading, some people need a demonstration, some people learn by doing. So in part, this is what makes gender-affirming voice difficult, because it does span a lot of the human experience. Voice is a complicated part of gender. And so as a result, I'm going to talk about, here we go, my experience and the experiences I've heard from others on how each of us, or how they have learned gender-affirming voice. Now, just as there are limits on gender expression, as I mentioned, that each of us has our limits on gender expression, there are also limits on learning gender-affirming voice. I think that we can overcome most of these, but the limits on learning gender-affirming voice are interwoven into the limits to expressing gender. This is part of what makes this so complicated. From a broad standpoint, the limits that I experienced and people I know experienced, apparently I need a drink of something. That's just tea, by the way. So the limits that I experienced, that my colleagues experienced learning gender-affirming voice, are threefold. First is developing auditory processing, as it's called. This is just discriminating sounds within a voice. I'm saying just, but that's complicated. Then we have to develop vocal biomechanics. So this is discovering how our own personal vocal tract creates the sounds that we hear within a voice. But then the last one, and Ella, you brought this up, is generalizing what we've learned, our ability to hear and our ability to create, generalizing what we learned into actual gender expression. So, let's begin with auditory processing. It's a fun topic. Auditory processing is pretty straightforward. The definition is straightforward. It's distinguishing one sound from another. And that means the ability to discriminate characteristics of one sound from another. When you think about voice in particular, we all learn about pitch and resonance and vocal weight. If any one of us actually can define them in like 10 words or less, each of them in 10 words or less, it's pretty impressive. Because none of these characteristics of a voice exists in isolation. Every voice is all three components at once, and the worst part is that those components change with the words we speak, the mood we're in when we speak them, the speed at which we speak them, the volume, it goes on and on. But the point here with auditory processing is, can we hear differences among voices? This is a foundational skill. You got to start with this. Being able to hear each component, as well as their combinations, allows us to extend our range of expression. Now I'm a musician, so I'm going to use a musical analogy here, because I'm just going to do it. If you want to make music, if you want to make any kind of music, the first thing you have to do is know how to make make the sounds. Okay. Make the sounds that you hear in your head. So you go, oh, I can hear great music. Well, how do you make those sounds? That could be just learning the sounds different musical instruments make. Can you tell the difference between a violin and a cello? Can you tell the difference between a piano and a harpsichord? And maybe, at least in my particular case, can you tell the difference between a single coil electric guitar pickup versus a double coil pickup? The point is that when you can hear these components and when you can name the components of a voice, then we can take those to find a voice that we personally would choose to emulate. Now, in my theory of gender, auditory processing is obviously physical, but I think there's a lot of influence from cognitive and social aspects of how we express ourselves. Hey, Ms. Lewis is here. Hi. That it is physical is fairly obvious. Each of our ears has a typical range of frequencies it can detect. And each of our ears has a typical range of volumes between which it can distinguish. Resolution of volumes that it can distinguish. And that's not even the same in both ears on each person. So obviously there is a physical aspect to this, a physical aspect to auditory processing. But I think a lot of this is impacted by our beliefs. We may judge voices that we hear based on people we knew, based on values that they taught us, or even worse, values that they beat into us. And this is a limit. It could be an obstacle. It could block our ability to hear a voice objectively. So specifically, that can impact our ability also to hear our own voice objectively, our beliefs on who we are as well. Now, although this is a foundational skill, and I'm not dumping on, the SLPs that I know, or anybody, although it is a foundational skill, I think, at least what I've heard, is that it's not always assessed completely. I'll say that much. It is possible to develop skills in auditory processing. Like you can, it's almost like, when you're learning intervals in music, if this makes a point, if this says anything to anybody, but as you learn intervals, you end up hearing how they sound together. That a second is different from a minor second, or a fifth, the way these things sound together. So it's possible to develop these skills in auditory processing. But if you're struggling, and here's one of my bits of advice, if you are struggling, what you need are examples of voices that isolate each component of voice as much as possible, that isolates pitch from resonance, and then shows the combination between the two. Now, I know there are about a bajillion videos, on video streaming platforms that demonstrate the difference between pitch and resonance, and oftentimes I don't feel they do a great job. And then you have vocal weight that's usually kind of addressed later as like an expressive polish on top of voice, but not always. So I believe key to overcoming this limit is assessing how well we isolate each component. So I think in SLP, if I'm going to give advice to the SLP, consider how to assess this ability to hear. Assess your client's ability to hear the components first. And if you're going to training, if you can't hear them well, tell them. This process has to start with limits on auditory processing because you must be able to analyze and measure sounds made with any voice before you're probably going to be able to make those sounds yourself. Which leads into our next limit, which is vocal biomechanics. That limit depends on how well we overcome our limits on auditory processing first. I told you this might be a bit dense. Hopefully this isn't too much. What do we got? So Anita says they get misgendered on the phone, but when people see them first, they're almost always going for miss. And then Anita's voice doesn't seem to override that. This is why I say that I disagree that voice is critical. there are a lot of components. There are a lot of components of gender, and sometimes you'll see somebody whose voice is not well polished, but she looks so obvious that people will go, oh, it's a slightly lower pitch. Fine. There are a lot of people with a lot of women with low pitched voices. What was her name? Kathleen Turner was one of them. There are people. Oh, I wish I could remember her name. Dang, she was in Romeo is Bleeding. I can't remember. It's a Gary Oldman film, and there's one part where she's laughing at Gary Oldman, and she's like, and I'm like, wow, that low, sort of raspy kind of voice just made me. Anyway, that was the end of that point. Whatever her name was, I forget her name. There are women with deep voices, and they might get misgendered on the phone too. I don't think that makes it critical. So, Angela brings up the point that she transitioned 35 years ago, but didn't bother to alter her voice until 18 months ago. Yeah. Because she passed most of the time. It's just kind of like, why bother if you don't have to? And then Angela says she changed her voice by practicing all the time, even on her own. So good job. Thistle says she will do something badly because that's just what she's good at. I disagree. Oh my gosh, I see. So future Dr. Stevie, there we go. I knew you. Hi, good to see you here. I like what Margie says. Any perceptual task can be improved with theory, discipline, and practice. For example, I have a color perception superpower, but only noticed my ability when I was working professionally in print. I don't disagree. I don't disagree. So here we go. So yeah, Thorns also says, Thorns Have Roses also says, there is no worse experience for her than when someone apologizes for calling me miss after they hear your voice. Oh, yeah, that would be a bummer. All right, let me talk now. Let's talk about vocal biomechanics, the limits that come from vocal biomechanics. I'm going to tell you, this sounds really technical, but it really just means our ability to make the sounds that we hear in our head. In my opinion, this is my opinion, not an SLP. In my opinion, this is the easiest aspect of learning gender-affirming voice, because here really you're learning techniques. Some of it is developing muscle memory, some of it is developing muscle strength, and these are actually similar to techniques that like a professional singer would learn. We're doing the same, think of it this way, we're doing some of the same things as Adele, right? I think that makes me feel better. As I mentioned, it could be developing strength in the muscles in the vocal tract. This can contribute both to changing pitch and resonance, but it's also being able to discriminate among the techniques to make a specific sound reproducibly, and that ends up being the point. Knowing how to move your muscles to make the same sound over and over again, even if it's not perfect, but making something similar. As Margie pointed out, learning a technique really only requires practice, which sounds, a bit dismissive. It only requires practice, but that practice has to build on the ability to hear what you're trying to do. And this is why I talked about auditory processing yet. And I got more below, so stand by. But to continue the musical analogy here, vocal biomechanics is similar. So now you've chosen an instrument. You're like, okay, I've got like a Fender Stratocaster, single coil pickups, maple neck, whatever. I've got an amplifier. Now what you're doing is learning things like scales and flourishes particular to the instrument. You start learning things like how do two notes sound at the same time, maybe. How does volume change your expression? How quickly can you play certain notes in a scale? But also the flourishes. What are the expressive capabilities of a musical instrument? I've only played on stringed instruments, but stringed instruments might have vibrato or slides. My lever harp, hard to do vibrato, but pretend. So you might have vibrato, brass instruments. Margie, maybe you got some good thoughts here. You might have a mute. There's a little, I don't know what that is. The thing with the finger. Woodwind instruments. My son played bassoon for a while, and that has a tongue position sort of, aspect to it. When you're learning these techniques, it doesn't mean you have to learn how to create any voice. You don't have to become Rich Little. It just means being able to create the voice that you choose and the ability to create that voice reproducibly. Before I move on, let me check a couple of these of comments. So Ms. Lewis brings up the point, Cyndi Lauper nearly muted herself trying to do Janis Joplin. Yeah, Janis Joplin voice is not easy. And Ms. Lewis says that a coach helped. Yeah, because see, we're not necessarily born knowing how to use every single part of our vocal tract. And Cyndi Lauper, I mean, I love her, by the way. I just want to point out. So Cyndi, if you're watching, I love you. I do love her, and yet, didn't stress a whole lot about pitch, in some cases. Listen to True Colors and you go, sometimes you're a little off, but it's fine because it's an emotional song and that's cool. Anyway, we don't all have this. We don't grow up necessarily with that. Here we go. So here's other comments. Margie brings up, yeah, there was a healthcare scammer. I feel like you told me this, who used a fake low pitch to increase her authority and credibility. Yeah. There's a lot of gender norms associated with that, right? What do we see? Oh, you know what? It's funny. Same here. When I was in Georgia, I got that quite a bit because my hair was waist length, right? I'm not a particularly, largely built person. And so I got a lot of that. I'd go into a restaurant with another woman and they go, oh, well, hey, ladies, what do you want? And I go, can we just get a table? And they'd be like, oh, sorry. And I'm like, no. No need to apologize. I actually kind of liked it. So Thistle brings up vocal as far as the limits. So do you mean the range of your ears is 20 to 2,000 hertz? Usually it's a little higher, but Margie says her voice is broken, needs to visit the biomechanic for a tune-up. Yeah. It's funny. Angela says the more you do it, the better the new voice gets, and now it hurts to make her old voice. It's the same. There have been times when people say, can you go back to your default voice? And I'm like, yeah, hang on. I have to struggle a little bit. I'm like, okay, defocus, change certain muscle memory. And Anita brings up a really interesting point. I like this. It is a miracle how we learn to connect the sounds we hear with the actions of the vocal apparatus as toddlers. Yeah, it's fascinating how amazing we are, to be able to do that. All right, let's relate vocal biomechanics to my own theory of gender. Vocal biomechanics, can't even say it. They are very strongly physical, but I think it's slightly impacted by the cognitive, behavioral, and social aspects of gender as well. Obviously, there are limits to everybody's vocal tract. Some people can't hit very high pitches or very low pitches. Some people can change the resonance or the vocal weight of their voice dramatically on command. And some people just aren't able to reach these ranges. Not a big deal, but they are similar. It is similar to auditory processing to a certain extent. We may have been taught to feel shame at making some of these sounds. We may have to overcome patterns of behavior that actually have protected us for decades. And this is not something I think that an SLP always recognizes. That we may have patterns of behavior we established to protect ourselves. And now you're asking us to go against those. So really, key to overcoming some of these vocal biomechanical limits is safety. As Angel pointed out about 20 minutes ago. So thank you, Angel, for that. You need safety. Practice is hard. the practice is so difficult that the praise needs to be extremely frequent. But the emotional practice can be just awful, extremely difficult. I would actually mention at this point, quick plug, hypnosis, using hypnosis is a possible route to addressing some of these behavioral blocks, because these blocks might seem completely inexplicable. And so having as many, there's also, I would say this to SLPs, you need as many tricks as possible to demonstrate techniques. Like what did I just say? Tricks. You need as many tricks as possible to demonstrate techniques. Like when I was learning about resonance, I was given this, here's a big list of M words. M with makara, right, in Sanskrit. I'm trying to, Mike? That's what it is in international. Anyway, M words. So you're supposed to go ma, meow, ma something, because making that and humming naturally raises your larynx. And so you go, oh, I'm raising my larynx. I got it. That's a trick. That was the trick that worked for me. Might not be the trick that works for you. So SLPs, if you have tricks, get as many as you can, because they're important. And here's my advice to those of you who might be taking speech language, any gender affirming voice lessons. If you struggle with a certain technique, you gotta tell your SLP. It's not enough to show up and go, I'm not getting it. What don't you get? The SLPs need to be aware that there may be long-standing, deep-seated expectations that we need to learn to overcome, that we personally have to learn to overcome. So talk about what it is that's difficult for you. If you're not hearing it, figure out if you're not hearing it, or figure out if you have a block to making it. It's different. So that's important. This process has to continue with limits on vocal biomechanics, because once we can analyze and measure the sounds that a voice can make, then we can begin to measure how well we personally make these sounds with our vocal tract. And this brings us to our final limit, which is generalization as gender expression. And that next limit, generalization, depends on how well we can overcome our limits on creating the voice we choose. All right, let me see what else we got. Oh, pardon me. Let me see. So it's true. So wait a minute. So Thistle, you're right. Yeah, I was going to say the normal range is generally about 20 to 20,000 hertz, 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. Wow, you do have 10% of the hearing range. I'm sorry. That's rough. Anita makes a good point. Yeah, so percent is more reasonable measured on a logarithmic scale. True, because our ears do hear logarithm. Most of biology is, most of our senses, work on a logarithmic type scale. All right, so let me see. So here we go. So Margie says practicing feminine voice and speech vastly improved her head voice and singing. Same. I missed something you said, Anita, too, about the bass voice. I apologize, I missed it. But same with me. I think really it ends up being strength. In my vocal tract. But you're saying continuously through chest voice and head voice to falsetto. Yeah, so now you can move through the passaggio more consistently. So now there's a singer's term for you there, to be able to move from what's considered chest voice up to head voice, where the primary resonance cavity. This is great too. Angela says she's improved her voice by listening to music and singing along. Who cares if it's done well? It does help to improve your voice. I think that's important, because you can also hear what a singer's trying to do. I've brought up Adele several times, because she'll have like one passage of a song that has one word that jumps up to a falsetto. May not do a falsetto in pitch, understand? It's a technique that she's using where, not necessarily with pitch, but she will use a falsetto type voice. So it's a little more breathy, Anyway, being able to distinguish all of those is I think, huge. I think huge. So let me see what else we have. We have a FIFA tube. Hello. Good to see you. Anomaly Shadow Sire. Hello, glad I could catch a stream. Me too. It's important to me. Let me see. Thistle says, I misunderstood you again. Your hearing is no, oh, your vocal range. Wait a minute, I am confused. You're right. My apologies. Generalization. I want to talk about generalization as gender expression. Generalization means that we've learned to hear the components of any voice and then our voice, and then we've learned the biomechanical techniques to create the sounds we want. But now the biggest step is integrating this new voice into our daily lives. SLPs give this a name, which is generalization. I would like to think of this as moving from practicing to doing. I think that's the way I think about it. If we're gonna, if we're gonna continue my musical analogy, this is where we move from playing scales to like improvisation. Let's say improvising jazz or blues or whatever, fusion, improvising the style that you would want to as a soloist. And just like in jazz or in blues, you can stick to the rules and you can go outside them. In fact, actually, here's the thing I learned. There are no mistakes. There's only jazz. So if you do something and then you perceive that as a mistake and you go, oops, I hit a clunker, we'll do it again. Now it's jazz. When you move from scales into improvisation, or scales to making your own sort of stylistic musical ideas, pardon me, this is when it becomes fun. This is now you can make the music that you've heard in your head. And this is when our default voice has become our chosen voice. In my opinion, I'm telling you this is where it's fun, right? After all of this, telling you this is fun, this is our goal, this is the hardest part, absolutely, of gender-affirming voice, in my opinion, and from what I've heard from other people. Because our voice is not just with us any longer. It's not just between us and an SLP. Our voice has to go out into the world. That's scary. Now we have to integrate everything we've learned, not just about voice, because remember, there's physical, cognitive, behavioral, and social aspects to gender. We have to integrate everything that we've learned into a cohesive gender expression. It's not just voice. Gender-affirming voice includes more than biomechanics, too. Even if we just look at voice, it's choosing different words or phrases. It's looking into other people's faces differently. Might be using different gestures with your words, using gestures at all. Maybe it's different expressions that you get on your faces. Now this, ultimately, is where it gets dangerous for us. Because now we've changed behavior. And in changing that behavior, in my theory of gender, it can change the level of safety we feel in our social environments, in some social environments. Because now we have to change other people's expectations of who we are from that time forward. This opens us up to criticism. This opens us up to rejection. And as a result, I at least, and people I've heard, we struggle more, to your point, Ella, from earlier, we struggle more with people we've known for a long time than people we've never met. Believe it or not, when I brought this up, this runs counter to the way typical SLP understanding of generalization would go. When you're addressing, let's say, a lisp or a stutter, well, here's the thing. Oftentimes, something like a lisp or a stutter makes other people uncomfortable. Dysfunction in communication, it doesn't matter what it is, dysfunction in communication often makes people uncomfortable. And so when you address it, and this is why we're calling it a pathology, if you address it, it usually makes other people more comfortable to communicate with you. But again, gender-affirming voice addresses behavior. It is not about a pathology, and we may not receive praise for it. Changing behavior typically makes other people uncomfortable at first. We have to ask them to accept our new ways of behaving, and they may not want to. Now, this means in my theory of gender, generalization is strongly behavioral and social. We may know that we mastered the biomechanical techniques. We may be completely comfortable using our voice for long periods because we've built up the vocal biomechanics. But now this affects more than just you. And we have to overcome patterns of behavior, again, that may have protected us for decades. We may be feeling shame not just at making these sounds, but at asking other people to change their perceptions. We change our behavior, and in fact, we may decide we're not going to change our behavior because we want to protect other people's perceptions of who we are. This is very common in the transgender community, the gender diverse community, is we choose not to change our behavior. We choose not to change our expression because we want to protect other people from who we really are. Now, key to overcoming this limit, generalization, unfortunately, I think is internal. If it's behavioral, if it's social, it's internal. I don't believe an SLP can help a lot here, but I also don't know necessarily most SLPs will see this limit. Unfortunately, particularly with some of us, when we face chronic gender dysphoria, chronic trauma as a gender diverse person, no amount of praise from one supportive person can overcome one critical comment from those who are important to us. And so this is where ultimately you decide. You have to decide that you deserve to make real who you are in the world. I won't kid you. That is not easy. Not by a long shot. To answer the question that I brought up earlier, though, is it worth it? Quite worth it. Quite worth it. I have one more small bit of gender-affirming voice I want to talk about. Let me check comments once again. Okay. Oh, big pianos. Thistle is a big old piano. I think that's good. Let me see. You are definitely grand. Yeah, right? Let me see. So, yeah, spans, well, it's a slightly less than 8 octaves, right? 88th, there should be 12 tones in a Western octave, right? In the Western scale. So here we go. Angela brings up a neat point. Angela says she told her employer that her change of voice was because her diction was getting lazy, and she was talking like that to improve her pronunciation. I think that's an excellent point. What's fascinating to me is that you didn't just go, look, this is the way I'm going to sound from now on, because this is just who I am. Did you need a reason? Did you need to give the guy some reason that he would go, oh, well, I'll accept it. I don't care if you accept it or not. That's who you're going to be. I'm not criticizing Angela, but that is a lot of things that we want to do. Here, look, here's a reason why I'm going to go and do something, you know? Anyway, like I said, not criticizing. Here we go. Yeah, I should have told them, hey, yeah, my voice is the same. Maybe it's your hearing that's going off. Seems the same. What's wrong with you? There you go. Let me see. So Anita says, when they started changing their speaking voice, they noticed themselves slipping back into the old voice in work situations. It's so simple. I do appreciate, so Anita then follows up to say, not sure why. Yeah, authority thing, habit of seeing your transition as a private life thing. It goes across every aspect of who we are. I wrote an article about this where I believe that this is so difficult because really it is us asking people to perceive us differently. And that's so difficult, especially if you have, I mean, Angela mentioned she worked with this person as a PA for 22 years. I mean, at the time, I think she changed voice, if I'm getting that right. And so you've established behavioral patterns, and people go, "Whoa, hey, what the? I'm uncomfortable with this." Yeah, it is extremely difficult. I agree. I do have a little bit that I wanted that delves into that. Anomaly Shadowsire says that their second mom is transgender as well. Here we go. Their second mom is transgender as well, and if it wasn't for her voice, she'd absolutely pass. Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, it does suck how upset she gets about it. Don't misunderstand me. You'd like to know how to help? I mean, there are tons of speech language pathologists out of there, or out there. I mean, Kevin Dorman, as I mentioned, Prismatic Speech Services. I don't know if you're in the United States or not, but Prismatic, I think, covers a lot of, 12 to 20, somewhere in that area, of the states in the U.S. There are, I'll tell you, there are videos. I personally believe if you can afford it, working with somebody who can demonstrate this in real time and like, oh, okay, let me give you feedback, then I would recommend that. I would recommend it as long as it's economically feasible, financially feasible. And that is sweet of you right there. Margie says it's very sweet of Shadowsire. Absolutely beautiful. I'm curious. So, Angela, what do you mean? She who? The your boss would not want an M2F trans person? Curious what that was. Let me see. Thistle says she practiced the authority thing with the dog. Instead of lowering your tone to tell him to stop, I raised it a bit and made it sharper. See? Yeah, see? So isn't that fascinating? You can change different aspects. It's not just about voice, right? Could also be about expressions. It could be about resonance. It could be with your hands and stuff. So there you go. So I do, yeah, I'm going to put this up here. I don't necessarily want to plug any particular, I guess I just plugged Kevin, but so Thistle does mention Transgender Zone with Victoria Rose. I could also mention Gianna Eros, I think is her name, is good. There is Seattle Voice Labs. Claire does a whole lot of things free. There's also Undead Voice, it's called. Nicole Gress is the person who makes the videos. There are a ton of resources, and once again, I'm going to say, if it's possible to work with somebody who can give you real-time feedback, I think that adds a ton. That's it. Miss Chief mentions there's free phone apps as well. Yes, that can help you measure pitch. Doesn't necessarily measure resonance. Hey, Minnie just joined. I'll tell you, when I first started, and I've mentioned this, right? I was talking about spectral analysis earlier, or spectrometry in particular. When I first started this, sorry, I'll hide that. And by the way, I do want to say, Bo, hello, good to see you, Bo, and good to see you, silent friend. Much support and love to you. Holy cats, it's odd out there. When I first started, I got something called, I think it's called Voce Vita. So I think it's called Voce Vita. Italian for like, no, maybe that's wrong then. Anyway, something about voice, but it will do a full-on spectral analysis on, so it doesn't just show pitch, doesn't just show the fundamental, because I don't know how much I want to talk about wave theory here, but in particular with a vocal tract, one of the big aspects is resonance has to do with the overtones of a fundamental. So even if you hit something, specifically feminine, let's say a 400 hertz pitch, that's typically associated with feminine, 400 hertz, the overtones make a difference on whether it would be perceived as androgynous, masculine, or feminine. So anyway, this spectral analysis tool, like you do, helped me do that. And so I would futz around with I just brought my microphone out and would just speak into the thing and watch it in real time. As I would mess around with certain aspects of my vocal tract to see how the to see how the the overtones changed. It's fascinating. So this is it. Yeah, Margie says, let's do a fast Fourier overview of spectra. So what this thing does, right? Obviously, it does a digital to analog conversion. Sorry, other way around. Analog to digital conversion, and then it does a fast Fourier transform on each slice, and I don't remember exactly its sampling rate, but you can look at each of those. And what's even cooler, I believe, is you can see it in real time. So you can be moving your larynx around and watch as some overtones come in and some overtones come out, and it's doing it, it's scrolling the thing. So you have maybe even 10 seconds, let's say, on the screen at a time as it's scrolling. It's really cool. It's not cheap. I think it was $50, $100. I think it was maybe $100. It was very. I was going to say it was very helpful for me. I don't know if it was helpful for developing anything, but it certainly did sort of make me go, woo, that was fun, right? It was a good scientific little woo. Okay, let me see what we got here. I don't know exactly how to pronounce this, but Muffins here asks, what are my views on homo nationalism? Well, I'm going to tell you I don't know precisely what that means. Sorry. All right, my last bit I want to do here, I went on a little bit longer than I wanted to with this particular presentation. I just want to mention integrating aspects of gender. This is sort of a closing, my closing statements here. We began this process. I mentioned we began this process of gender-affirming voice because of social expectations. Every social environment has expectations on how a voice should sound. And we have to choose to reject some expectations and embrace others. But just as we began with social expectations, we are ending with social expectations. Ultimately, our biggest limit is how strongly we can resist other people's expectations on who they think we should be. Our biggest limit is how strongly we can assert who we know we are. Nobody can tell us who we are. Nobody. And it certainly hurts when they try to do so. So ultimately, the limit is, can we stand our ground? Can we withstand that pain? So to complete my analogy to music here, there is a trick to improvising music successfully, in my opinion. There's a trick to improvising music successfully. And the first thing is just owning the music you make. You have to own it. You have to enjoy the music you make. You have to know that even if some people aren't going to like your style, you do, because it is yours. I mean, I've heard guitarists ask. I mean, I started learning guitar in the late 80s. Yeah, late 80s. And one of the big things that was always in the magazines, how do we learn to solo? And the thing is, there is no learning. There's doing. And hearing yourself do it, and then doing it better next time. The same is true of gender-affirming voice. The more that we do it, and I believe Anita brought this up, the more that you do it, the more the voice becomes you. The more people know your voice as you. And I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of hate out there. It's a tremendous amount of hate. But there is no criticism that can defeat authenticity in your expression. It's not a fake voice. It's a chosen voice. Just a voice that's different from your default voice. There is no criticism that will defeat authenticity in your expression. So I don't know. Go forth and get gender-affirming voice. That's everything I had to present there. So let me see. What else do we have? Let me see. So Angela does bring up, your employer doesn't like you. Would not like you if she knew she. Wow. That's so weird. The people you work with would change their understanding of whether they care about you or not after they've worked with you for 24 years. That's ridiculous. Hey, Yasmin, good to see you. Oh my gosh, are you calling me an absolute beauty? Thank you. I mean, I appreciate that. Let me see. Uh, okay, so Muffin's here. So sorry. So Muffin says it's a meme ideology, sort of a joke question. Sorry if they confuse me. Okay, I wasn't trying to. I was somewhat blown off because I'm like, oh, I wish I could. I wish I could tell you, but so let me see. Oh, so wait, homo nationalism. Oh gosh, yeah. I suppose if I were to put together all of this into, etymology, which I do with every single word, but not this one. So it could mean a monocultural society. Sounds rather authoritarian. That's for sure. So, Muffins, I think this is an interesting question. What political ideology do I personally support? So I'm going to tell you right now. Oh, Yasmin says bright purple hair and pretty eyeliner. Oh, thank you for sending the gift. This eyeliner, I started wearing false eyelashes too. I am such a huge fan of false eyelashes now. Totally love them. What political ideology do I personally support? I'm concerned on like what this question is supposed to mean. Like, what's my political party? Because I think almost every single one of us, in fact, if you look at statistics, most people in the United States actually don't trust our government to represent them adequately. Like, most people are not strictly Republican, strictly Democratic. Most people are somewhere in the middle. And I think I would say to you, I mean, that's my political ideology. I am a scientist. Okay, I'm a scientist. What I do, and I can't seem to help myself otherwise, but what I do is I look at nature. I look at the universe. I don't take somebody else's ideology. I look at the universe and I educate myself on the way things go. So there are certain things that I believe that maybe would be characterized as conservative. There are definitely things that I believe that would be characterized as liberal. So where does that put me? It turns out with most of the people in the United States, a mixture of the two. I don't think there is I don't think that there is really a strict type. I don't know where I'm trying to go with this. I don't think that there is, an extreme. I don't think most people are extremes. So, and I'm going to go with this. Margie says authenticity is all. Agreed. Absolutely agreed. I like this. I vote for whatever candidate will screw up less. I know it's fascinating. We've been doing this. We've done this. Oh, I'm going to vote for the lesser of two evils, right? I've done that. I did that three or four times in my life, and finally, I'm like, you know what? Piss on this. I'm not even going to bother voting for people, because if they don't represent me, why would I do it? Now, I've said that. But now I think it's important to vote against ideologies that will hurt you. So I don't know. Maybe does that help a little bit, Muffins? I don't know. And if you want to give it a name, is that centrism? I'm a little unsure. I don't know. I really couldn't say what I would call it. Again, what I do is I try to look at what's realistic. Maybe you could call me somewhat of a pragmatist. I mentioned I'm a scientist. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Let me go a little bit here. So Angela mentions, this is great. Thank you for some of the end of this story. Angela gets honest opinions of her new voice when she's on holiday at the hotel, as the staff know that she is transgender and they believe her voice is more feminine. Good. I love that. I think ultimately, I mentioned in the beginning that it might sort of be like polish on top of, a lot of other expression. And I'm going to stand with that. Obviously there are times, because I've seen this too. I have seen people who present amazingly well, and then, so physically, I would look at this person and go, absolutely cisgender woman, and then we'll start speaking, and I go, oh, And it's a bit jarring. It can be jarring. I'm not saying that those people should stop doing what they're doing. Sometimes it's jarring because I have the same expectations, to a certain extent, some of the same expectations that my social environment did, growing up, as I was growing up. These are things that I've internalized from my social environment over, 5 decades. And in part, that's why we would, part of why we would pursue gender affirming voice in the first place. Let me see. So here's Thistle. I appreciate this comment. So Thistle says there is no centrism. You're either for or against, and either involved or uninvolved. I think that is how politics have become. I don't think that's how politics need to be. I don't know if that statement, just because it seems like it has symmetry doesn't mean it's all that intelligent. But I will say, it doesn't have to be a for or against. It doesn't have to be involved or uninvolved. I always kind of worry about that. I see the bumper stickers that say, if you're not angry, you're not paying attention, right? Yeah, sort of. I mean, you could be working within the system too. So I don't know. I think there is centrism because I think that's really what all of us are. Just as gender is a spectrum across many axes, so really more of a surface. What did you call it, Margie? Like a hyperdimensional. Agreed. Just as gender is like that, I believe, the human experience is like that. And that's partly where politics come from, because that's what politics is, right? Relationships among humans. So Angela, so hang on, what's this? Anita knows what they're talking about. Did I miss something Anita said? Nail polish. Oh, here we go. So this is, it's a good point. When we look at what's going on in the U.S., right? We go, oh, that person's really right wing. Oh, that person's, bleeding heart liberal. The rest of the world is kind of like, wow, you guys are really super conservative. As a European, U.S. Democrats are a center-right party. So no doubt I'm more to the left than both of their parties. Yeah, low bar. It is a low bar. It's an extremely low bar. I believe, I believe that's a good point. And I stammered because I'm looking at this. Yes, left and right is a false binary. Because can you really say that one thing necessarily conforms to an ideology? I ask this question, and I'm going to be a little bit philosophical here. My little bit of philosophy here is, are these ideologies consistent? I think we can say pretty strongly, no. The Republicans say that they're all about individual rights, but the right to your own body, that goes away. That's not true. Something else can override that. So that's an inconsistency. If you look at, I had another pet issue that I used with the Democrats that they believed in that doesn't correspond. It's not consistent with other aspects of their ideology. I don't think we have ideologies that are consistent. And if you don't have ideologies that are consistent, then that is a false binary. You really just have a collection of beliefs and no ideology that from which you can derive all of those beliefs. And if that's the case, yeah, do you have a false binary? There we go. Oh yeah, make sure you add informed and uninformed, yeah. Superdimensional hyperspace. Thank you. There you go. Superdimensional. This is interesting. You found that very young people get confused if you present feminine but speak in a masculine manner. That's interesting. What I found for the most part is that every younger person I found, no matter what I looked, if I just said, my name is this, these are my pronouns, very young people tend to go, yes, they are, and just use them. And I understand, when it's really, really young, because there's a lot of research that's been done on children and how they perceive gender within weeks. We want to say, oh, kids don't know anything about gender. How could they possibly understand? Because we perceive differences in gender within weeks. There's a lot of research around that. So I do understand, yeah, because if you blur a line, I can certainly see, like, maybe you're talking infants or up to maybe 9 or 10 months or so, maybe even a little more. Yeah, I can see them going, wait, what? But still kind of going, oh, okay, like getting over it pretty quickly. So, here we go. Yeah, I love this. I'm not really sure how to say this. I'm going to say it Joy because I like je. The sound je. Joy says, in the U.S., there is no leftist power with any party with any real power. We've only got the center right and the far right. Oof, that's a bummer. So I like this too. So a one-party system is exactly one. I think you meant a two-party system is actually one party away from a one-party state. And yeah, ideologically agreed. Now, I know that people go, well, how could that possibly be? They're so different. But the party used to be the Republican Democrat, or the Democratic Republicans, I believe it was a hyphenated, right? It was the Democratic Republicans. How do they not have a difference in ideology? Or how could they have a difference in ideology? Sorry, how could they have the same ideology? Came from the same place. If you're looking at logical arguments, that's the way it works. When you have a logical axiom, which is to say you don't need to have a consistent ideology, because neither of them seems to care about that. Yeah, they have very little difference in it. Charlotte, thank you for this point too. So Charlotte's an Australian, and she seconds the sentiment that there's really no distinction here. Yes, I'm just want to pop that up while I drink some tea. Jaron Joy says the kids get it. They haven't yet been taught to hate. You have to be taught to hate. Isn't that so crazy? We've observed this. We've there's a lot of work around this. We've observed it. Sorry, everybody. Nose is dripping. You have to be taught to hate. So I have a friend, Lindsay Bindman is her name. I actually recorded a podcast with her, so maybe you could look that one up too. But she has her work today is she's calling it unlearning. Right, you've been taught to hate, and you need to learn it, to unlearn that hate. But it just means questioning it. I think it's crazy to think that just because something is older, it's necessarily true. And there's a weird dichotomy here. There's a really weird dichotomy that we go, well, 200 years ago, we didn't know anything about government. We know everything about government, right? We wrote the Constitution. If it was good 200 years ago, it must be good today because that's just kind of how the way it goes. I might bring up another point that apparently, on the order of 4,000-year myth written by a guy who may or may not have existed named Moses, we're looking at that as still factually and historically accurate today. And then, but then they'll go and they'll look at science. And if you go, well, I'm using science from 200 years ago, they're going to go, you're an idiot. What's wrong? Well, I don't know. How did political philosophy stay the same over the course of 200 years, but science did not? Are they connected? Is the human experience, does that change over 200 years? We learned this stuff, right? We have to learn this stuff. And then we have this weird dichotomy on, well, your grandmother hated, so I hated, and now you get to hate. We're passing it down. This is what posterity is. Thank you so much for coming to our hate party. No, that's awful. Here we go. So, truth. Yeah, just because you got D's in class, kids absolutely know about gender. And anybody who is transgender, see, I love when somebody says that. I had no idea about gender. Oh, really? Well, let's talk about certain aspects of your childhood. And then people go, Oh crap, was that about gender? Yeah, it's about gender. It's so much of our existence. This is a fascinating question. So Anita brings up, so a high school classmate of theirs went around asking people, do you believe humans are fundamentally good or bad? And reacting to the answer, then you should vote left or right, presumably respectively. The thing is, I actually would put that the other way around, for what it's worth. I think individual rights, the concept of individual, I'm going off on my philosophical bent again here, so bear with me a little bit. The concept of individual rights has to be based on the idea that humans are fundamentally good. Because if they're fundamentally good, then they deserve the ability to manage their own life. They deserve liberty so that they can pursue their own happiness without harming, without abrogating those rights in other people. You have to be fundamentally good for that. And since the right always says, oh, we believe in individual rights, and then have, consistently proved that wrong over the past, I don't know, decade? 20 years now? Long time. Although they still like to use it, right? They still go, oh, we're totally about individual rights. We are going to limit the Second Amendment from some people, and we are totally going to get rid of the First Amendment if you make jokes about us. But we're all about individual rights, absolutely and completely. It's funny. Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Okay, I like that. Okay, so, geez, I'm 5 minutes behind. Is that real? So it was a good starting point to understand you can't derive practical policies from basic ideology. See, I think, crap, because I think you can. I think if you start off with a concept that humans are fundamentally good, then you have to support an idea such as individual rights. If you have a concept such as individual rights, then you can start thinking about how humans interact with each other. So politics. So you really have to go towards something like a democracy, where people have an equal say in what's going on. And if you go, oh, well, that's different from the US, it totally is, because we have a democratic republic, which is different. But once you have those politics, you can turn those into ethics. You can make it into an ethics that's based on the idea, I mean, this is individual rights, but based on the idea that you harm no one, because if you abrogate somebody else's rights, they get to abrogate yours. They would be morally able to do that. So I think you can derive practical policies from basic ideology. This is from me thinking at a very low philosophical axiom. And most people don't start from, are humans good or bad? Most people go, I don't like that human, so what I want to do is just regulate them out of existence. Oh, really? I think you're asking for cosmic wheel sisterhood. We probably should have. It's 3:33. Oh my gosh. That went on so... I didn't know that was going to happen, but... This is... Margie, tell me more about that. Is there something else that you said about that? In the musical South Pacific, there's a song called They Have to Be Carefully Taught. Gotta tell you, I don't know the song. I almost want to pull up lyrics. I am going to bring this up because I believe absolutely, I stand absolutely with you on this, Sharon. Sharon is so sick of the founders being canonized. They were people and they were fallible just like us. And many of them were not good people. No, most people, I think, many of them did not believe in some of the things that they were writing about, or at least they certainly didn't believe them in the way that they should have in order to write them. We can't canonize people. I mean, you can in a religion. That's fine. Let the crazy sort of, religious people do those sorts of things. But when you're talking about political philosophy, gosh, the world changes. I mean, and even if we go, oh, well, but the US was perfect. Is England still using the Magna Carta verbatim? No. Anita brings up, here, let me move to it. Anita brings up Germany had its first constitution in 1918, which was very modern. There was somebody, Bisha? I'm trying to remember exactly who it was. There was somebody who brought up, though, that one of the founding fathers, I hate using that term because it's so, well, patriarchal, I think is the word I'm looking for. Anyway, brought up that one of the founding fathers said, what we need to do is rewrite this Constitution, at least revisit it every 20 years. Could you imagine how different it would be today if we could go, you know what, that didn't play out very well. Can we just change that? Let's change that. I think that would be sweet. I think it would be sweet. You would have, I think you all know. I used to be in technology. Well, maybe you don't know, but I used to be in technology, software development in particular, and software development oftentimes uses a concept called agile methodology. So it's a project management methodology. Don't hang up yet. I swear it'll get interesting. Agile methodologies mean, at base, you communicate and you do evaluation based on that communication so that you can change what you're doing in response to the evaluation. Now, this is actually the way every navigation system works. Well, I really am talking about like a rocket navigation system. So if you launch something, you have something that's measuring about a bajillion different sensors, give or take like a bajillion minus 50. So a bunch of different sensors and changing things so that the rocket doesn't end up like falling into the ocean. Like, SpaceX has done quite a bit in the last few months. Aside from that, like, this is what we do. This is the way technology has always worked. You really always have to evaluate what you're doing. And if what we do is canonize founding fathers, we have no way to correct course. And I understand there are people who don't want to. I get it. But these same people who don't want to correct course, who want to, have the Constitution be exactly those words, are also the people who end up, surprisingly, making translations of the Bible that support all of their politics. How's that happen? I don't know. Pretty crazy. Oh, I thought I had something up. What else do we have here? So thank you, Sharon. That was I think it was a phenomenal comment. I don't know if you expected it to turn into that. So Anita is saying, okay, so that 1918 Constitution didn't end well. So one of the major changes in the new Constitution in 1949 was no more executive powers for the president. Might not be a bad idea. So Muffins, I love this. Thank you. Muffin says they knew what a gender was since they were 2 years old. I agree. I think you do. Angela, let's see. Yes, but when you have to pass to survive, if a child is confused, it could harm your perception by the adults. Agreed. Yes, agreed. I'm not gonna. I don't know what else I would want to say about that, but because actually, I just want to show this. Perhaps further commentary is superfluous here. If humans are naturally evil, why in the ever-loving hell would we trust them to rule over us? A good point, she says as she throws back the rest of her English breakfast. Anita, thank you for the clarification. So Anita says the humans good bad thing speaks more to authoritarian or not. In Germany, we're used to seeing the right as more authoritarian. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree. I don't disagree, and I think this is, again, to go back to one of the points I made earlier, we don't see consistent ideologies. We don't see political groups, and I don't even mean political parties. I think individual people. We don't see people derive their beliefs from axioms. I mean, maybe you're going, what in the fuck? you talking about? I took a philosophy course, right? So I took a year of philosophy as an undergraduate, and I don't know, maybe I actually considered pursuing philosophy because I kind of wanted to be able to say, yes, I have a doctorate in philosophy, and people will go, did you stutter? Because you might want to see a speech language pathology. No. Anyway, sorry. I considered doing a degree in philosophy, but here's the point. When I took it, there's a logic course. Does one thing follow logically from another? And of course, if you're going to make an argument, like a valid logical argument, you start from an axiom. This is an axiom that, especially if you're in a debate, both sides agree on, unless it is that axiom that you're debating. And if you just go, well, I believe humans are inherently good, well, I believe humans are inherently bad, you go, all right, so get a cup of coffee or something? What's next? Do you just want to hang out, blow up some balloons, sit around in a room? Anyway, I think of myself, and Muffins actually started this whole thing off. I think of myself as somebody who really starts from first principles in some things, which I think makes a lot of people go, how do these two beliefs, work together? And then I go, oh, because, and then I'll go to something way far down. They'll go, how come this works? And I'll go, oh, well, let me start here to get to here, to get to here, to get to here, to get to here, to get to here. And then people are like, oh, why are you doing this with your life? And I go, I don't know. So that's why I started live streaming. Not entirely true. Oh, let me see. Oh, it's a song about racism and hate. Okay, thank you, Margie. So this is the song, You've Got to Be Carefully Taught. You've Got to Be Carefully Taught. Rodgers and Hammerstein from South Pacific. I forget who was in that movie. Was that an Elvis movie? Was South Pacific one of those? I can't remember. I'm not saying that, makes it any worse. Just asking. So Sharon says there is a provision in the Constitution for calling another constitutional convention. I believe it takes a three-quarters majority in order to do that. And so I guess, these days it would feel very scary, but I think I would just wonder, would we ever reach a three-quarters majority? What's the chances of that? You have Democrats who, they're like, I'm not even going to say a word. I'm going to sit here, and Republicans, sorry, I should just say, you have Congress people, they go to Congress like, I'm fully representing all the people, whoever's in my district. I'm fully representing them. They don't say a damn word. Sometimes they decide not to vote, and if they do vote, they just go, well, I'm really just here to vote on party lines. Is that representation? Now we have people, they only vote on party lines, and now you have political parties threatening Congress people if they don't vote along party lines. So, yeah, it would be really scary if you had these people, well, I'm pointing west, but I should probably point east because Washington, D.C. is that way. But it'd be scary if it were those people. Anyway, agreed. And this is true. We cannot get a constitutional amendment passed these days. So getting a new convention called would be extremely difficult. And here's the thing too. Even the Equal Rights Amendment. So I was born in 1970, just to throw this out here. I remember being like 5 years old and I'm seeing people with, little buttons that say ERA. I don't know why you had to wear a little button. Now we don't do that. Now it's like our Discord status or something, right? It's your Twitter status. Anyway, your little buttons, ERA. And I thought, oh, isn't that cool? The Equal Rights Amendment. And I remember thinking to myself, for whom? Because don't we have that? Don't women get to do everything? And then I grew up, right? I was like 5. Then I grew up and I went, holy cats, we had to write an amendment for that. And Sharon, maybe you knew this, it actually did pass, right? Well, there was a vote, I should say. It passed a vote, and it's been like 15 years. It's been like a long time, but it has yet to be written into the Constitution. It has yet to be put into the records. This is the Equal Rights Amendment. Like, this is something that I remember from when I was literally a child. And we have yet actually to make that real? I mean, I don't know what in the world is going on here. I do appreciate, I'm just going to read this. PDI, proportional, differential, and integral feedback systems are remarkable doodads. I think what we're talking about here is agile methodology. So thank you. I appreciate that. Oh shoot, I am so far behind. Charlotte brings up, this is great. I think she says the politics of the Christian right have nothing to do with the teachings of Christ. When your whole set of policies is based on, we hate these people because the Bible says so. So by the way, here's a, do I want to go on a rant at all? Who knows? You know, I'm close enough to the end of the stream. Why not? You get these people who go, well, we follow the teachings of Christ, right? Those come from the New Testament. There are 4 Gospels, right? 4 Gospels. I mean, there were more. After the Third Ecumenical Council, of course, you know, in about the 4th century of the Common Era, there were 4 Gospels. So, these are our teachings, right? We follow the teachings of Christ. And then they use Leviticus. Leviticus, which is one of the first 5 books of the Old Testament, I mentioned before, that's part of the Pentateuch, it's called. The 5 books of not just the Old Testament of the Bible, but also the Torah. And these are attributed to Moses writing these things, traditionally ascribed to Moses having written them 4,000 years ago. Now, you may recall, maybe if you've read a gospel, maybe, that Jesus says something like, this is a new covenant. One of the things that occurred in the Old Testament is a covenant with humans, a covenant between God and the rest of it. The 10 Commandments were part of that. You know, it was all great. Everybody's super happy. But then we reach the New Testament, and you have Jesus who says, I've got a new covenant. This overrides all old covenants here. You know, it's part of those old covenants like Leviticus. That one covenant is, don't screw each other up. You know, let me differ. I was going to say it differently, but that one commandment comes down to, don't be a jerk. How tough is that? Don't be a jerk. So now we look at the politics of the Christian right, and they're like, you know what? All I am is a damn jerk. I'm just going to be a jerk. There you go. Live it up. I don't know if you thought your small comment was gonna bring such ire from me, as well as historical context. But there you go. What do we got? It's crucial to fight for. Thistle says while it's crucial to fight for queer rights globally, homo nationalism urges caution about how these rights might be used as a political tool, potentially at the expense of marginalized communities and without addressing broader systemic issues. I don't know. I don't think I'm smart enough to. I was smart enough to read it, but I think now that I have. So Shakespeare, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. First of all, you had a sad trans friend call you. I'm also really sorry you had a medical episode. I hope you're okay. You've got to be carefully tucked. A story of wearing a mini skirt with a thong. These are the types of things that show up in my comment feeds, and I love these, personally. It's awesome. Let me see. So Sharon says, okay, you were thinking of the ERA too. I forget which, I think we called it the 27th Amendment. I think it should be the 27th Amendment, I think. I didn't know you were also born in 1970. Here's an interesting tidbit. ERA was doomed from the start. I could say it earlier. Now I'm struggling. ERA was doomed from the start because no way men are going to willingly give up superiority or even just the perception of superiority. Then they are lying. If you go, I am absolutely for individual rights, you're lying. if you wouldn't think the ERA was just like natural, like obvious, the kind of thing that when we did the Civil Rights Act in 1964, that people probably that there were probably some people who went, we didn't have that? How did that slip through the crack? We didn't have that? Oh my gosh. Now that being said, I'm still kind of fascinated that ERA actually came after the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Somewhat a strange thing there, but yes, here we go. So it passed a vote, but yeah, I believe that's the words that we want to use. That the Equal Rights Amendment passed a vote, but was not properly ratified, which would have written it into the Constitution. One of the things Joe Biden did, like on the way out, was instruct. I'm trying to remember what the person's called. It's like the government recorder, executive recorder, perhaps. I forget what the office is called, but instructed them to go, listen, write this shit down. It's been 15 years, 20 years. How long has it been, Sharon? I'm curious. Because I think it's been at least 15 years, might be more, since that vote passed. And the crazy thing is now there are states that have rescinded their votes. So it was actually voted for, and now there are states that are like, yeah, we wouldn't completely agree with that now, which means women get the hell out of those states. What the world, geez. Anyway, this is typical, yes. I follow the teachings of Christ, proceeds to ignore Christ. Very true. Here we go. I'll read this. Why not? Yes, I do like those sorts of comments because they crack me up. So here we go. Here's a story from Thistle. If you're just listening, here we go. So here's something from Thistle, who says, well, let me tell you about the time I took a chunk out of my junk with electric trimmers. It still hurt less than laser treatments, and yes, not a nick, a chunk. So by the way, if you end up getting laser treatments, you just wait. There's a new form. So I don't know. For my vote, by the way, laser treatments were absolutely much nicer than electrolysis. I think of like laser treatments as kind of like a Lutheran sort of priest, right? Just somebody who's like, you know what? This sounds like a big problem. Can we just push it off, like for a while? Yeah, that's cool. They're not really gonna, get into morality. They're just sort of like, God probably doesn't want to do that, but it's time for lunch and I gotta go. Anyway, Church of England or Lutheran or something. It's like that. That's like laser treatments. And electrolysis is like the people who had the power to do the Inquisition. Right, what are they? Dominican priests. They're the Dominican sect. It's the difference between like Lutheran priests and Dominican priests. Now these people are like, oh, okay. Do you want to talk about morality? Let's start first by sticking screws on your head. Yes. Does that hurt? Oh, well then let's do 2 turns of the screw. William James reference there. I don't know. I think it was William James. Who knows? Anyway, thank you. I do appreciate that. 1949 in Germany, ladies and gentlemen, men and women, and everybody else who's in between. Germany, 1949, men and women shall have equal rights. Fascinating. Amended 1994, the state shall promote the actual implementation of equal rights for women and men and take steps to eliminate disadvantages that now exist. So now we've gone from equal to equitable. Look at that. Maybe it's time to move my ass to Germany. Who knows? I have no idea. Oh my gosh. It was 2 to 3 square millimeters spot. All right, thank you, Sharon, for bringing this up. According to Wikipedia, the ERA was first introduced to Congress in 1923. reintroduced in 1971. So thank you. So first of all, it did predate the Civil Rights Act, which is not entirely an amendment, right? There's a Civil Rights Act, backed up by the 14th Amendment, if I remember correctly. ERA was first introduced to Congress in 1923, reintroduced in 1981. What happened within those 50 years? Do we just kind of go, oh, we have women? Oh, I forgot. Do we have women? Yeah, didn't they make the planes that we were flying? I forgot. I think there were people making planes. And then passed both houses of Congress by 1972. Fascinating. Okay. 1972. So it has been 53 years. Like, we can't even believe that. 53 years. And it has yet to be written down, like truly recorded. What is wrong with this country? Matt just joined. Hi, Matt. Good to see you, and thank you so much for those gifts. They truly, you know how much I appreciate them. I love this. Angela says you should try electrolysis for hundreds of hours. That really hurts. Oh, whew. Especially if you have to go hundreds of hours in succession, right? Like I got to the point where 2 hours, by the end of 2 hours, like I was, breaking down in tears. The person's like, look, we have another 5 minutes to it. Let me just get one more. I'm like, no, please don't do it. Please, come on. Be kind to a sister. Please don't do it. She's like, nah, you got 5 minutes. Okay. Where was I going with this? Nowhere. Let me see. Oh, yeah, the lasers do only go so far. So for what it's worth, yeah, the lasers only go so far. I mean, you do have to have good contrast, right, between your skin and the color of the hair, which is a bummer. It's kind of a bummer. But Anita says they may have missed the boat for laser and can't imagine doing the 100+ hours of electrolysis. I know somebody who has red hair. Now, red hair apparently just does not work with laser. So laser hair removal works very poorly with red-haired people. I'm not an expert in laser hair removal, okay? This is part of what I know, or what I've been told. What was I going to say about that? Oh, yes. Not only did she have red hair, she was also is kind of a hirsute type person. So relatively heavy beard, and relatively heavy body hair. And so she was like, oh, I'm gonna go look at consultations. I'm going to look at a consultation for surgery, and went to a surgeon, and the surgeon says, okay, well, you are going to need, hair removal, complete hair removal, yada, yada. And so she went to laser place. They went, okay, that's funny. Okay, go next door. The electrologist. And the electrologist said, yeah, we could probably do, if we do about 2 hours a week. I think it was 2 hours twice a week. They could probably get her cleared in about a year. I mean, that's 200 and whatever hours, right? My math may not be great. It's 220 hours. Oof. They could probably get her clear. Oh, I'm not talking. I was talking. Could you imagine that? 4 hours a week, every week for a year. I don't think I'd make it through. Matt said, it is true. Aliens once shot him in the face with a laser. But his beard blocked it. Because it's a red beard. The red hair blocked it. It's pretty cool. And then Matt says he knows some people who would be into that. Really? For 4 hours a week for a year? I don't know. I think, 2 or 3 weeks would go by, and I think you would go, you know what? I'm going to take a little time off. I got to take some time off. Like maybe a month. Maybe a year. Maybe never. I don't know. So for what it's worth, so Sharon also says, maybe missing the boat on laser. Can't imagine doing the electrolysis. So Sharon says most of her facial hair is gray now, but there's still enough of it with color that she's thinking of doing laser just for those. I think that's a great idea. For what it's worth, I mean, I do still have some gray, some not a ton, but I do have some gray, hairs. I'm not going to get close enough for for you to see them, but for the most part, laser worked exceptionally well. It took care of enough that and now that I'm fully transitioned, now that my body is estrogen dominant, my hair grows really slowly on the face, grows really slowly. I don't know. It's weird because my head hair still grows about the same, whatever. It grows the same pace. But on my face, it grows pretty slowly. So I'm like, about every 3 days, I go, maybe I should do something about this. And then I would highly recommend a double-edged razor. Don't go and buy those like $18 cartridges. Go and buy like a cheapy blade that actually works really well with your skin, because my skin got really soft too. That's what estrogen does. So anyway, there you go. Apropos of nothing, but thank you, Sharon, for bringing that in. This is interesting. So in Angela's day, 37 years ago, there was only electrolysis, so no choice. Yeah, the lip. I hear the lip is the worst. I never got anything done on the lip. The electrologist I was working with kept on going, you know what, there's other places. Why don't we go other places? We got like 6. I'm not going to bother. Let's wait until we do other things first. I never had a lot of body hair or facial. There's no way. I look at people like Matt who can grow a beard, or like a impressive kind of beard that you go, damn, that guy's got a beard. And that's Matt. If you don't know Matt, you got to go and see Matt. But the hell was I saying? Oh, so I could never grow a beard to save my life. I mean, I want to. So I was okay. But I did have some people who were like, why don't you might look older. You might look older if you got facial hair. And I'm like, I'm okay not looking older, I think. Because, there were times I walked into a restaurant. I'm like, can I order a beer? And the person's like, yeah, let me see your driver's license. And I'm like, I am 40 years old. Okay. They look at it and go, maybe. We'll get you a beer. Anyway, this is another neat thing. So yeah, Thistle says she was so surprised how soft her skin got from HRT. Ooh, I know. I got it. When I first started doing this, I do this less now. I want to preface this. Let me actually say what I was going to say. What I did a lot when I was younger? I don't know. When I was newer to this, so HRT, you can't see this on purpose. I have my thigh now exposed. I pulled up my skirt. Because my thigh skin feels like velvet. It's so amazing. And I used to, I would do this a lot during meetings, right at the very beginning. And I'm just like, yep, feeling my velvety thigh during. I love it. So I love the way my skin now feels. It's pretty great. Oops, did I? Oh, I missed the button. Yes, Matt's beard is true. Oh my gosh, see, there's a little picture. You don't see my mouse, but down there in the lower left, my beard is truly the nemesis of laser-wielding aliens across the galaxy. I think across the universe. There we go. Oh gosh, wait, really? Oh, shoot. Something funky happened on my screen. So Charlotte, you're saying threading works? Why, I wonder? I might have to look into that, because I got to tell you, the electrolysis thing, it's oh so slow. And I don't know if threading's any faster, but Charlotte, if you could reach out or something, or maybe leave a comment, and I don't know, I'd love to hear more about threading, unless you have like a video or an article. If you want to drop a link, that'd be awesome. But I'd love to hear more about the threading, because there are some people in town here that I've heard are exceptional threaders. whatever the word there is for that. So I'd love to hear more about it. But where was this? You haven't gotten carded for alcohol since you were 16. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where you were when you were 16. Boy, I remember even when I turned 21, there were people. I got a lot of this was in San Diego. I got a lot of grief. What's the word I'm looking for? It's enough. I got a lot of grief in bars. I'm like, I'm 23. Like, it's been a couple of years even. And they're like, this is fake. This has to be fake. And I'm like, so anyway. Gosh, are you an exception? Did you triple play? Oh gosh, well, if the cartridges are only about $1 a piece, go for it. I will tell you, it took me when I first started messing with the double-edged razor stuff. So this is a long time ago. Oh gosh, I think it was about 2014 that I first started looking at it. And I'm going to end soon, I swear. But, we're talking about shaving because when I first got into it, I think it probably took me 6 months. I would probably say it took 6 months to find a razor that was good on my face, a blade that was good in the razor, and all the other stuff around it. 6 months. And I gotta say, I mean, that's the kind of thing that, yeah, I think most people go, just not worth it. Just not worth it. I took it as somewhat of a like a science experiment. I'm like, well, I wonder what would happen, and I didn't, it was not like critical for me to address facial hair because I never had a lot of it. So, what the hell? What was the other thing I was going to say? And then I learned how to use a straight razor. And you might go, I've been shaving for years. That's easy, right? No problem. Totally easy. A straight razor is such a different. First of all, it's an incredible shave. If you can do it well, so truly amazing. And the other part of that is, oh yeah. So once it takes you a long time to learn how to use it, but boy, it works. It works exceptionally well, and it seems to last longer too on me. So there you go. That's the thing. So let me see. I will. So Shakespeare says they did keep a pretty rocking goatee until the dysphoria outpaced the need for safety and comfort. And yeah, I guess so. The thing is, so threading, as far as I know, is similar to waxing. Only you're doing this, with threads, right? And so it's somebody doing. It's like playing cat's cradle, only on your face. So I don't think it's permanent, but I think it's similar to like the effects of waxing. It's sooner or later, as Charlotte says. Oops, sorry. Where did you put it? Oh yeah, sorry. So Charlotte ends up saying it is not permanent, but it pulls it from the root. So over time, yeah, you get less regrowth. I mean, I've got a depilator type thing, electric, depilator type thing, and I keep on meaning to try that on my face and just see, is it going to hurt? Probably will. I'm the kind of strange person who would do that. But anyways, let me see. What was something else? So it isn't, but this is true. So threading has been used in a lot of places. Not just the Indian subcontinent. I believe it actually originated, if I remember correctly, farther east. So maybe China, possibly Japan. And yeah, it has been around for like forever and a day, sort of like sugar waxing, which I got schooled on, by the way. I thought I knew enough about waxing techniques because who knows why I was studying those. But I thought I knew enough about these, and somebody dropped a comment or something. I was like, sugar waxing, what is that? And I looked it up and I was like, oh, well, this has been around for 4,000 years. Wow. There's like written, in like cuneiform or something, but like written accounts of using sugar type wax techniques. It's like, really? So that's cool. Oh, I know where I saw it too. It was actually on Blue Sky. Go follow me on Blue Sky, by the way. What do we get here? Let me see. I'm gonna I'm gonna maybe plow through this. Oh, yeah. So here we go. Threading does work on the lips, so there we go. What else? Oh, see, so Bo, yeah, you do like so I see them as DE, but I think they're fun. Yeah, straight razors, there you go. Well, so here's the thing, Anita. If you, like, I don't, because like a blade for me, I get about 3 uses before I go, starting to hurt starting to irritate my skin. I'm very hyper aware when it comes to irritated skin. I don't think that means I have sensitive skin, but I am very hyper aware. So I let a blade last like, 3 tries and then I throw it away because it's like a nickel, a dime. Yeah, something like that. It's like a dime. So like, I'm like, who cares? Yeah, throw it away. Whoa. You have epilated your face? I did. So here's the thing. When I was young, so it was would have been around 2000 or so. I don't remember exactly. Around 2000. Once I graduated from graduate school, so that was 1998, get my first job. Now I'm actually making money. I'm like, hang on. I didn't realize if you got a job, you'd have money. What the hell here? So anyway, I'm like, I've got to do something with all this, I've got like $100. What should I do with this? So I bought like an electric, like a Braun epilator type thing. And I used to do everything, everything, not my face. It was the only thing I didn't do, but I was all my arms, everything. Okay. Everything. And, very true. Then I started to end up with ingrown hairs, and so I stopped. A fascinating thing, though, is now that my body is estrogen dominant, okay, so now I would say this, now that my body is estrogen dominant, epilators work really well. So I don't know, Thistle, when you were doing that, but it might actually be better now. You never know. Before I was getting all kinds of ingrown hairs, and it's funny, too. Because I was a big runner. I think I've mentioned this enough now, but when so back in like 2000 or whatever, I had been shaving my whole body and then epilating my whole body for like 5 or 6 years at that point. And I started, once I was getting into like industry, there were people who would look at my arms and go, what happened there? Why don't you have any hair? And I'd say, oh, I shaved them. And they go, wait, why? That's weird. And I would go, because I'm a runner, and if I trip, and if I fall down onto pavement, because I usually ran on streets, if I fall down onto pavement, I'm going to scrape myself up. And if you have hair on that, it's really rough. You don't want to do that. It's just like cyclists, right? Cyclists, they shave their legs if they fall, And I had people go, this is a really, really, really tenuous connection. Cyclists shave their legs. You're a runner, and so you're shaving as a tenuous connection here. And there you go. That's my story. Marchie, I want to know, because I've now looked, you do this at home. Sugar wax. I'd love to know, did it work well? I'm curious. I'd really love to hear. This is great. Okay, so Charlotte used an epilator on her face. Scrub well after, yeah, that does help. That's why it stopped the epilator. Oh gosh, it hurt more than electrolysis. Yikes. Truth here, safety razor worked exceptionally well. Once I started transition, I'm like, well, I'm going to shave my body again because I loved it when I was younger. I was going to say young. Like 30. Is that young? It's young enough. And I found that the safety razor was amazing. My skin was so great. Oh, love it. So here you go. Wow, you will swap in a new blade halfway through. Dang, that's pretty good. Roughs with the old edge, then cleans up with a fresh edge. It's pretty good. Okay, so here, yeah. So Thistle, you weren't, yeah, maybe not. You might try it. I gotta tell you, it was a surprising thing. And I was like, should I try this? I don't want to try that. Oh, hey, Philip Flint joined. Hi, Philip. I was like, should I try that? I don't really want to try this. And then I tried it and I went, wow. Well, I tried it because I got waxed. got my legs waxed, and I was like, wow, holy cow, wow, that's amazing. Yeah. Ooh, I love this. Oh, so true. Since Margie became estrogen dominant, you can shave dry on your face, which actually is very effective. Yeah. I oftentimes, like, I've gotten to a point now where I'm like, you know what, I'm going to let something grow so that I can use like this soap and everything, because I have some beautiful soap. Lavender. I'm just saying. I have some amazing lavender soap that smells beautiful. And so I like to do it. But usually I'm like, oh, let me clean that up before I go out the door. I'm like, I have 3 things showing. I better clean that up. And so I always end up doing it dry. Well, I mean, I put like a little bit of water. And yes, it's remarkably effective. I can't, you know what also works is I like to use Thayer's. This isn't really a plug here, folks, but it's Thayer's non-alcohol, like witch hazel. Yeah, there we go. Thayer's witch hazel. As long as it's the non-alcohol, there's a little bit of glycerin in that, and the glycerin is enough of I guess, you know, like a skin lubricant that it actually works pretty well, you know, to shave with. Who knows? Or who knew? Who knew why? Yeah, 30 is young. 30 is totally young, since this was 32. I have used this as well. Right when you were Angela says when she was working in a bank, she had very long nails. People thought she played a guitar. I've used that as well. You know, oh yeah, no, it's just I play acoustic guitar. Yeah, makes perfect sense. And then people said, you know, it's fascinating because I did see you in a skirt this past weekend, but this is all just about playing guitar. And I go, hey, anyway, I got something to do. I got a thing at a place with a guy at some time, and I'll see you later. So there you go. This is a good story, though. Okay, so Margie, oh, no joke. You bought a kit from a pharmacy for like $15. Okay. Tub of wax in the back. Oh, reusable strips. Come on, get out. Oh, that's right. If it's sugar wax, it would dissolve in hot water, wouldn't it? Oh. You are making me go, I'm driving to the pharmacy right now. I'm considering it. So I don't disagree. Yes, so I'm using a soap that is, I do not like, as long as we're talking shaving stuff, I don't like tallow-based soaps. I'm going to go on record as being like a bleeding heart here. Like a vegan, not really vegan, because I do eat meat occasionally. I will eat meat, but I will use glycerin-based soaps. Glycerin-based shaving soaps in particular. There are 2 great things about it. One of them is that glycerin does work very well on your face, so it's good for moisturizing and it's good for lubrication. But the other great thing about it is, like, I have this one bowl of there's like a bowl, you know, that if you take your glycerin puck, your hockey puck looking thing, put it in a bowl and put it in the microwave for like 30 seconds, it melts and it sticks to the bowl. So now you got a bowl that you can just go and then do whatever you do. I also have a special bowl that I use for you know, whipping it up into a lather. I should also mention, you know, I've actually talked about taking cold showers, right? Cold shaves, which sounds like the worst thing ever, work really well for me. I'm not going to say it's going to work for you, but that was part of like the 6-month process, 6 to 12-month process of, you know, learning what was going to work for me. Another one was using cold water to use the razor before I took a shower. So don't get your face hot and the skin soft. So I would do it before I took a shower and used cold water. Works great. I would never have thought, however, to use conditioner. I mean, actually, I guess maybe I would have tried that, but I don't know. That's a good idea. We're really close to 420 here. Doesn't have to mean anything unless you want it to mean something. or close to 4:20, at least in my time zone. So I'm considering going ahead and shutting down. Oh, here we go. So Angela says she gets some hair on her arm. So once a month, use shaving foam and a razor. Yeah, I love the epilator for that. Yeah, I love the epilator for it. So, all right. Anyway, I am thinking about shutting down here. I want to say thank you to everybody who commented on every streaming platform here. As usual, thank you, Thistle and Angela and Anita and Shakespeare and Matt and Margie and Genevieve and Bo, obviously, Charlotte, everybody who commented, and Mischief, I don't know if you're still out there. Sharon, thank you to everybody who commented and who made this live stream at least interesting for me. Hopefully it was interesting for you. I will be back on Tuesday night, 5 p.m. Mountain Time, which would be 7 p.m. Eastern Time, or 4 p.m. Pacific Time. And then if you don't use Freedom Time Zones, then you're going to have to do a calculation. Sorry. We didn't know that there are other countries in the world. This is why we're Americans. It's untrue. Some Americans. So thank you again. Thank you so much. Charlotte, thank you for the tip. That's truly amazing. Thank you so much. I will see you all on Tuesday, maybe. Thank you again. I'm going to leave it at that. Talk soon. Bye.